Welcome to the League of Women Voters Tacoma-Pierce County Candidate Forum for Sumner City Council Position 2. I'm Lydia Zapeta, the moderator for this forum. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County, I welcome you to this candidate forum. The League of Women Voters Tacoma-Pierce County acknowledges that we gather on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, surrounded by their traditional waters in the shadow of Mount Tahoma. We actively seek inclusive and respectful partnerships that honor Indigenous cultures, histories, identities, and current realities. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization whose mission for the past 105 years has been to empower informed and active participation of citizens in government. Candidate forums are one of the many ways we do this. Visit our website for more information, lwvtpc.org. That's lwvtpc.org. We invited all the candidates for Sumner Mayor and all council positions, but only the candidates for position 2 chose to participate tonight. The candidates in ballot order for the Sumner City Council position 2 are Matthew Kenna and Nick Biermann. The general election is November 4th. To register to vote or change your address, do so at votewa.gov, votewa.gov, votewa.gov by Monday, October 27th. If you're already registered as a voter and your address is correct, your ballot will be mailed October 17th. Your ballot must be postmarked or placed in the ballot drop box by 8 p.m. Tuesday, November 4th. This forum is being recorded and will be posted at the League of Women Voters Tacoma-Pierce County website. Again, that's lwvtpc.org. Questions have been prepared by the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County. We invite live audience questions via text to the number that is below my image. It's 530-647-6482. Please text your questions to that number. Questions must be directed at both candidates and may be reworded or consolidated. Our timekeeper today is Terry Baker of the League of Women Voters Tacoma-Pierce County. Candidates, please stay on gallery view so that you can see the timer. When your time is up, please stop. You may finish a short sentence. Please do not talk unless it's your turn. Please mute yourself when it's not your turn to speak. The audience is on mute and cannot use the chat function. A reminder that civility is expected. I ask each of you to confirm that you agree to our ground rules, which among other things include addressing the issues and not making personal comments or attacks. Please confirm this by giving me a thumbs up. I see the thumbs up. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Each candidate has up to 2 minutes for an opening statement. After that, the order of questions will rotate and each candidate will be asked the same question. At the end, each candidate can make a 1-minute closing statement. The order of the opening 2-minute statements for the Sumner City Council position 2 is in ballot order. So we'll start with Matthew Kenna and then we'll have Nick Biermann. Matthew Kenna, your opening statement, please.
Thank you, Lydia. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us, and thank you to my fellow candidate for joining as well. My name is Matthew Kenna. I'm honored to serve you on the Sumner City Council currently, and I hope that I can earn your vote to continue doing so. When my family and I moved to Sumner 7 years ago, we were looking for community and for a place to raise our kids. We found exactly that, and not long after arriving, I began serving on the Parks Commission because I wanted to get more involved and I felt like the best way to give back was to get involved. But public service is more than just a passion for me, it's also a responsibility. Professionally, my public service background is in planning and policy. I work specifically on areas of transportation issues that touch our city specifically very directly. What I bring to the council is the ability to take those complicated problems, those complicated issues, to analyze them and to work towards practical solutions with my colleagues, my partners, with staff, and with the community. I really pride myself on being able to do that, and I've done that professionally, and hopefully we can get into some of that as we go along. I've served in other ways too. I've worked in higher education for a number of years. I have coached youth soccer when my time allows for it, and I also have mentored public policy students at the University of Washington. I'm a generalist, and I work across a lot of issues, not just one or two. And over the past year, I've built really strong relationships on the council with my fellow council members, with staff, and other partners in the area. I can hit the ground running, not just with ideas, but also with those connections. It's been a very busy year. I stepped in to fill a gap on the council, and I had to hit the ground running, but I hope that I can continue to do so and represent the citizens of Sumner. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick Biermann, please, your 2-minute statement.
Yes, so first, I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County for hosting this forum. And I'd also like to thank my opponent for agreeing to be here tonight as well. I think it's so important to have sessions like this where voters can get to know the candidates, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. So about me, I am Nick Biermann. I'm running for Sumner City Council position number 2. I first visited Sumner for the Daffodil Parade in the years before the pandemic, and I had friends who lived here at the time. They invited me here for events and holidays. That's how I got to know Sumner. I even used the Sumner station for the first time during that period. I loved the small town feel of downtown Main Street when I arrived here. And I even remember standing next to the painted daffodils on Main Street. So when I had the opportunity to move here, I jumped at the chance. And I want to make that point particularly clear that even though I wasn't born or raised here in Sumner, I chose to make Sumner my home. I've invested a great deal of time and energy being an active and involved member of the community, and I've attended nearly every city council meeting for the past few years, even including committee and commission meetings. My experience attending and speaking at city council and hearing the concerns expressed by fellow members of my community is what inspired me to run for council myself. I'm running because I see a clear need for greater citizen input, greater citizen involvement in city government, and better communication between the city government and the citizens. I want to be an advocate for those citizens who don't feel like their concerns are heard or being addressed by the current council and city government. From traffic to parking to population growth and increasing pressures in Sumner, we'll face many challenges in the future. I'm not a career politician. I'm a citizen who wants what's best for the community.
Thank you. Now we come to questions. The candidates have up to 90 seconds to answer each question. Again, the live audience can text questions to 530-647-6482. We'll rotate the candidate order, so we'll start with Nick Biermann this time. So the first question is, I have actually several questions about growth and development. So let's start with this one. How do you propose to make housing and rents more affordable to the residents of Sumner? Nick Biermann, please.
Yeah, so actually this is a concern of mine as well. We have several large developments that are planned, large housing developments that are planned for our community, but we don't have a lot of affordable housing space that's currently allocated in those spots. So I think that's one thing we will need to do going forward is look at our potential for management of new housing additions and even before the permits are approved, require the developers to include allowances for not only affordable housing, but even MFTE units in particular. But I think there has to be a requirement put in place by the city in its process before the buildings are approved instead of after the fact. We've got a lot of new developments where there wasn't really that action put in place beforehand, and now I think we're going to face a situation where we've got new residents who may be looking for housing in the community, but it may not be affordable. It may be at levels that are not affordable because of the type of units that the city has already approved.
Thank you. Matthew Kenna, what's your proposal for more housing, to make housing and rents more affordable?
Sure, thank you. I feel like first and foremost, the affordability problem is a general housing problem. We don't have enough. And that's not just a Sumner issue, that's a regional and statewide, and in some places, a nationwide issue. So I am supportive of more housing. We definitely, as my colleague has mentioned, my opponent has mentioned, I care about Sumner's character and I care about keeping Sumner just like Sumner is. But we have to understand that there is change coming and we have to adapt to that. We have to shape that to work for us. So in terms of affordability, some things that I would be thinking of and policies that I would be championing are like the South Sound Housing Affordability Partners work. They've done great work to pool a number of cities in our community together and the resources and the funding to build affordable housing. They've done that. They're doing that in Frederickson currently, and I would be looking to do more of that. It's not just a Tacoma problem or a Seattle problem, it's in all of our communities. And so we need to address that and leverage some of the people that do this work on a daily basis. I would be looking at the missing middle housing, which the state is kind of pushing more and more, which is duplexes, triplexes, townhomes. It's not the high density, but it does get us something and it does provide more affordable options to different income brackets. I'd also look at community land trusts as a way that people can hopefully in the future gain ownership of property they're putting money into.
Thank you. Next question. Let's talk about downtown revitalization. Is this one of your priorities? Why and how will you pay for it? Matthew Kenna.
Definitely downtown in Sumner is a big deal. That's what we pride ourselves on, and it's an economic driver for us, along with the manufacturing industrial center. So yes, I care a lot about those small business owners that are right downtown and how we can support them and leverage their skills and expertise and the things that they sell to, to our community and to the folks that visit our community. I really think that strong communities start with strong small businesses. And so I think that's really a point of pride for Sumner is that we have all these great restaurants and shops in our downtown heart. And it's right on Main Street. Our high school's on Main Street. We have drive-ins and it's just a really cool thing that I think we need to cherish and cultivate. Some things that I would be looking at, policies that I would be looking at implementing were exploring activating our vacant storefronts. And maybe there's ways that we can do some short-term leases for entrepreneurs, artists, small business owners that, just get them in the door, see how that works for them on a short-term basis. Permitting is a big one. The processes and permitting that small business owners, the hoops they have to jump through can be very complicated. So are there ways we can make efficiencies for them to speed that process up and get them, put them those keys? I would also be looking at investing in our downtown core in sidewalks, in bike parking, getting the Sound Transit Garage up and running. All of that is going to provide aesthetics and feel and provide opportunities and accessibility for people to get to our downtowns.
Thank you. Nick Biermann, talk about downtown revitalization. Is it one of your priorities? Why and how will you pay for it?
It's definitely a priority, and I completely agree that supporting the small downtown businesses it must be a priority. That's how we get tourism. That's how we get people coming to the downtown area. It's a core of the charm, the small town charm that we have. So we absolutely must support small town businesses. We do have some businesses that are currently struggling. We have vacant storefronts. We've got some programs in place already right now to encourage more use of downtown. Like we've got the street parklet program where some of the businesses can have parklets and have dining outside, and they're making use of that by request of the city government. They're allowed to set up these parklets for dining areas. I think we need more of that type of approach. I also think we need to maintain the building facades in any new development. So if there are new buildings that are put up, right now downtown is zoned for 4 stories. If new buildings go in, I think we need to make sure that we're putting in design codes that keep the small town charm in place with the same type of facades, because small town businesses want to see that, and the visitors want to see that. That's what draws them to downtown. So in order to keep the tourism dollars coming here, I think that's an important aspect as well.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Nick Biermann. So please speak about your other priorities in Sumner's comprehensive plan for growth and development, especially land use and transportation. Nick Biermann.
Yeah, transportation will become particularly important going forward. Right now, Sumner is in many ways a cut through or a pass through town for some folks, where people are driving through to get somewhere else and not necessarily coming to Sumner or staying in Sumner. I think that causes issues with traffic and issues with speeding on some streets that I live right out here on the east side, and they speed down the street here as they're going through the community. So that's one issue we have to focus on. And then specifically when it comes to the additional housing, some of the buildings that are being proposed have parking, some of them don't. We can't assume that people who are moving here will not have cars. I don't think that's a dependable assumption to make. And we need to have the infrastructure in place to handle additional parking and additional residents who are coming through. The Sumner City Council actually recently approved a transportation tax to the development tax, and that tax is going to be used to pay for maintenance of roads going forward. And part of the plan that the council needs to put in place is how those funds will be distributed.
Thank you. Matthew Kenna, please. What other priorities in the Sumner Comprehensive Plan for Growth and Development, especially land use and transportation?
Sure. Thank you, Lydia. Land use and transportation are connected, and we can't just talk about one without talking about the other. I truly believe that mobility is freedom and that people in Sumner deserve that. So basically on day one of joining, I was asking questions about Pierce Transit and getting back into the Pierce Transit service area. And we've had early conversations about that. There's a lot of hurdles to get us there. But I think Sumner residents deserve connections to other communities, not only for shopping, but for educational opportunities, maybe in Puyallup or Tacoma, for jobs that maybe right now they can't access if they don't have a car or if they can't afford driving, which is expensive nowadays. So I want that good bus service back. I want Sound Transit to increase their service on the Sounder train, not just to be a commuter service, but to also service throughout the day, potentially on weekends, later in the week nights as well. All those things are important. And when we plan for those things, when we bring that public transportation in, now when we have some of that new development going in near our transit stations or maybe bus stops in the future, it all makes sense. People don't have to drive to get to their job, or maybe they only have to walk a short distance to the station or the bus stop, and then they've got a connection to their next opportunity or their shopping trip. So I see it as all connected. The comprehensive plan brings that all together. And talk makes it all integrated and talk together.
Thank you. The next question is an audience question, and we'll start with Matthew Kenna. How will you work with the mayor and other council members to influence change? Matthew Kenna.
I think I think working with the mayor, I've demonstrated. Luckily, I've had a year or so to do this, to build relationships across the council with staff, with the community, as best I can. And so I think working specifically with the mayor, we have regular check-ins, talking about issues that I'm hearing from the community, issues on my mind, things that are coming up at council meetings. And those are only times with the mayor and the city administrator to address any concerns, challenges, opportunities, and those types of things. If you don't have those types of relationship skills to work with somebody that may have different ideas or different concerns, unfortunately, you're not going to get very far. I really pride myself on being a connector and working with people. I've worked with nonprofit advocacy groups that have very different perspectives than some of the state agencies that I've worked for. I've worked with tribes who come into a situation working with my agency. There's a lot of mistrust right from the get-go that I haven't earned, and I have to work through that and work with them. So working with the mayor, as far as I'm concerned, we need to develop some shared goals, some shared understanding. Yes, we can have different viewpoints, but I think I know the mayoral candidates specifically, they all have the best intentions and the best heart for our community and moving forward. I don't feel like that'll be a problem because I've demonstrated in my professional life that I can work across the aisle.
Thank you. Nick Biermann, how will you work with the mayor and other council members to influence change?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Well, I feel like, first of all, in my work right now, communication is a strong suit. It's absolutely required. for my job, because since I convey information to clients all the time, and I have to hear their concerns and then convey the information back to them that they want to hear. So taking that approach to city council and cooperating with the mayor and other council members will require a similar process. Um, so part of it will also be hearing the input from citizens and then synthesizing that information and then working with the council and the mayor. So I can go back to the council members and the mayors and talk about the concerns that were raised to me, and then I can try to set up meetings, work with them, and see if we can find a solution that best addresses the problems that were raised to me. Um, there are various committees and commissions that the council members also sit on. So part of the responsibility of being a council member is to work through solutions and work with staff in those situations so that we can pass recommendations on to the full council. So a lot of the relationship building will happen in those types of situations as well.
Thank you. So next question, we'll start with Biermann. And please talk about the city's aging infrastructure, particularly the Stewart Road Bridge over the Duck River, which needs replacing. What's your plan to address it and how will you pay for it?
Well, we've currently got, actually, we've got several large capital projects that are already in the works. And the Stewart Road Bridge replacement is one of those. But that one is a project that has multiple partners. So it's not just the city of Sumner. The city is working with the county and other neighboring jurisdictions to help not only work with the funding, but also on the design and implementation of the project itself. So that's a cooperative effort that's not just focused on the city of Sumner. But we also do have road maintenance issues in the city here. We've got Washington Street, which is actually slated for some repairs from the council's discretionary fund. And then we've got the Transportation Benefit District that the City Council just approved. And as I mentioned earlier, the funds from that will be allocated toward maintenance and upkeep of the roads. So the decision making will reside with the council in determining how to disperse those funds, working with staff to decide on where the priorities are, which roads need the replacement, or which roads need temporary repairs to keep them in place longer. Like you can do seal coating on roads to keep the lifetime of the road extended.
Thank you. Matthew Kenna.
Yes, yeah, great question. I think my opponent covered the Stewart Road Bridge a little bit. I'll just say that it's a very complex project. It can only be done in certain, time periods of the year because of the complexities of the river underneath and the weather conditions and things like that. So there is a little bit of difficulty as far as that goes, but it's a really important piece to our local economy, to our network of people just being able to get around. That particular piece of our region, there's a lot of manufacturing and warehousing, and so we need to have the ability for truck drivers and people getting to jobs to be able to get around. I'll just say, just in general, in terms of our infrastructure, the Transportation Benefit District is something that the council did pass. I did vote to pass that because we do need to maintain and preserve our roads. I am in a unique position working for the state in the Department of Transportation, that I know uniquely that our roads all across the state are not in a great condition. And if we don't take care of them early, they will cost more, as well as the longer that we let it go. So if we invest now before those problems are really dire, it'll pay dividends in the long run. I also want to see major improvements in our sidewalks and our bike lanes. That infrastructure is either lacking or non-existent in some of our neighborhoods. So I think we have a ways to go there, but we're chipping away at it. Funding is just a never-ending issue for transportation.
So next question actually is a follow-up that actually allows you to expand on this, and we'll start with Matthew Kenna. Are there other infrastructure projects that are priorities in Sumner? What are they and how will you pay for them? So Matthew Kenna.
Sure, sure. Yeah, great. In terms of finishing my thought there, sidewalks to me aren't extras; they're essential things for our community. We all use them, the young, the old, and everybody in between. And we're lucky that we live in a very walkable and bikeable town. So I've already had a lot of conversations with our city staff about where those priority areas are in our community for sidewalk improvements, for new bike lanes, for increasing our trails and the footprint and the connectivity that has linkages to our economic growth as well. So a lot of importance is put upon that level of our infrastructure. The White River Restoration Project is another one that we have just kind of gotten off the ground. It's a very complex project. We've had staff working on that project over a decade, and it's just now kind of seeing the light of day in terms of, moving forward. That's really going to open up a lot of things for our natural environment as well as connect our trail system. It's going to take a number of years, but we're going to get there. Um, Most importantly, to me, as somebody who walks my kids to school on a regular basis, who has an e-bike, I'm biking around town on a very regular basis. I see infrastructure improvements in terms of safety. I see a lot of reckless driving, careless driving around our community, and I am a champion for safety for all modes and how people get around. I think we have some design issues we need to address in the city, and I would be a big champion for that.
Thank you. Nick Biermann, are there other infrastructure projects that are priorities in Sumner, and what are they and how we pay for them?
Yes, so I'm actually glad that my opponent mentioned bike lanes and the trails and paths that we have in town, because those are important connectors that help people get from place to place without necessarily using the roadways. Um, we do have a very good parks and trails plan that addresses a lot of those and where the funding comes from. We do have the ability to develop partnerships with different agencies, not just within Sumner, but also at the state level and county level as well. So there are grants that can be sought for designing the bike lanes or helping with the trail system. The White River Restoration Project is another great example of trail improvements that are also being funded by grants. So grants can be a significant source of funding for a lot of these larger projects. The smaller projects, though, they don't have the ability to be funded by grants. Sometimes the transportation grants that come from the state and the county, they won't cover the cost of maintenance for some of the smaller roads, and that can be an issue. That's an issue that the city is addressing with the transportation benefit district right now, which is another tax that the citizens have to pay to help cover the cost. So so how do you pay for it? The ultimate question. Well, it's a combination of outside sources that you can partner with, but also taxes that the citizens have to agree to pay.
Thank you. Next question is an audience question, and we'll start with Nick Biermann. How will you listen to the community and bring community concerns to the council? Nick Biermann.
I think I've been in a unique position over the past couple of years because I have been at many of these city council meetings, but I've also had a lot of people who have come to me and vocalize their concerns separately outside of the city council meetings. And that's the way that I would like to continue to work with the community. I'd like to have these sit down moments where you can have coffee with a council member and people can tell you what they are most concerned about, and voice their concerns directly to you so that you can be a mediator in between and take those concerns to council, take those concerns to the staff, and we can work on a solution together. Communication with citizens is extremely important, and it goes both ways. I think we also need to have a better system in place of the city and the staff providing information to citizens about events, about hearings, about ways that the public can be more engaged and more involved in the process of setting policy for the community as a whole. I find many people who say that the communication from the city government comes primarily through internet, email, and postings online, but a lot of them don't necessarily get their information that way. And I think we need to find and remember that there are members of the community who would like to see different types of communication, from postings on signs around town, or flyers
Thank
sent
you.
to
Thank you. Matthew Kenna, how will you listen to the community and bring community concerns to the council?
Sure. It's a great question. It's an important question when you're in the role of public service, like I have been for over 15 years. I think it's maybe the most important responsibility that I have, either when working as staff or as an elected official. I'll just speak to a moment for a plan that I worked on for about 4 years for the state, and it was called the Human Services Transportation Plan, and it was really trying to address and spotlight the growing inequities and lack of access to mobility in our state for folks that are have disabilities, for the elderly, for veterans, for our youth, for people of color, all different kinds of communities that face different disadvantages across the state. And that gave me a really great insight talking to a number of people, not just in Western Washington, but in far off northeastern Washington and Pend Oreille, all the way down in southeastern Washington and Nessota County, and everywhere in between. And I heard a lot of concerns about just getting to their job, just getting to school, just being able to find a grocery store that's not a 7-Eleven. I took all that community engagement in and used it to formulate a plan that has influenced state policy. I also, just in terms of Sumner, I'm walking all the time. I got kids in activities in schools, and my job never stops. Engagement never stops. Taking input from our community never stops. So even if it's just a comment at council meeting or if it's an email, I'm taking all that in. I'm reaching out to people, following up, and seeing how we can work together.
Thank you. Next question, and we'll start with Matthew Kenna. What is your plan to address congestion and aggressive driving in Sumner? Matthew Kenna.
Sure. I think I touched on this a little bit earlier in terms of the aggressive driving. I've witnessed it. I've been a part of it when I'm walking my kids to school early in the morning or walking back in the afternoon. And it's really scary. It can be very scary. And it seems like things nationally, the trend has been going up for more injuries and fatalities. And so in terms of how people drive and their behaviors, initially you kind of think, okay, there might not be much we can do. People are just in a rush and they have places to go. I actually think it's really a design problem. I think that a lot of our roads and streets are, as mentioned previously, kind of cut throughs, and people are trying to get to the highway. We're at this nexus of a lot of different highways for people to get to different places, and they're using our streets. My street in particular is one that people just zoom through and don't follow the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. So I'd be addressing that through design and be working with our engineers and our staff. Again, it's a funding issue, and where that all comes from, I would be looking at that. And in terms of congestion, I think again we're a little bit hemmed in terms of the highways and how people get around. That's where I look at that transit and that land use piece of it. If people don't have to drive to their job very far, or if they've got a grocery store nearby, or if they're right down the street from a restaurant they want to visit, it makes it all easy. It takes the car off the road, and they're not fighting to get through traffic to get to Puyallup or Bonnie Lake.
Thank you. Nick Biermann, what is your plan to address congestion and aggressive driving in Sumner?
Yeah, this is a concern that I share too, and that I've personally witnessed and experienced some of these issues just on the street outside, right here. Um, there are some things that the city can do that are short-term solutions, like speed humps, for example, on some streets. Not everybody likes speed humps, but that's a possibility in places where they're deemed appropriate if a study determines that the average speed is too high. Flashing lights on the signs that warn you of the speed that you're going if you're over the speed limit. There's actually one down the street from me, and that's sometimes can be an appropriate solution. Enforcement of traffic laws. I know that places an extra burden on the police, but there are a few different places in town where stop signs are not always followed, and having officers in place to enforce the traffic laws might be one way to address that. The same thing with various intersections where there are street streets where the cars are parked on the street itself. Enforcement of parking rules, or adding no parking zones to make the intersection more visible, and make it so that pedestrians crossing the street are seen by cars traveling by. There's also the need for buses too. I think if you reduce the number of people who are taking cars, we would rejoin the Pierce County transit system and have more buses. That might be another way to reduce the congestion.
Thank you. Next question is an audience question. It's actually a couple of them that are combined. And we'll start with Nick Biermann. What are your views about the rules for high density development and how to keep Sumner's small town charm? Nick Biermann.
Yes, thank you for that question. I appreciate that one. This is another concern that we're going to have to address. There is the need for managing growth, but the way that we manage growth in the community is up to us. It doesn't, just because we're in a situation where we will face growth doesn't mean that we have to automatically approve high density housing. There's various options to accommodate the potential for growth. So I think we should have a smart approach toward development. So you could have some areas with high density housing, you get some areas that are zoned medium density or lower density, and you can have a balance of that. You can also allow the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units, on certain lots, and that will help with adding housing, but not necessarily putting so much additional pressures just from adding high density housing alone. I really think a smart growth approach is the best way to handle this, and make sure that housing that is approved and built will actually be filled. There's a concern in my mind that if we approve only high density housing and have lots of high density buildings, that we may have people who can't afford those and they may go vacant and unused.
Thank you. Matthew Kenna, what are your views on the rules for high density development and how to keep Sumner's small town charm?
Sure. I know it can be a concern for some about high density housing. I'll go back to in the right context, in the right places, it's not a bad thing and actually can be a good thing. The alternative is to have sprawl, where we have single family homes littered all over our communities that go further and further out, and now people have to travel farther and farther and farther to get to the grocery store, to get to their jobs, to get to their educational opportunities. So particularly around the same Sound Transit Station within that quarter or half mile, I think it's a good location to have high density housing. As you get further away from that town center, I do think it becomes a concern, and so that kind of medium density can make more sense. Again, in the right context, we don't want to just have 3 and 4 story buildings popping up around our low density residential neighborhoods. One thing that we really need to consider is that some authority, the Puget Sound Regional Council allocates growth targets to all of its jurisdictions within the 4 county kind of Puget Sound area. And we have to accept those and we have to plan for those targets. And it is up to developers within the zoning that we plan for to then develop or not if it doesn't make sense for them. So we are a little bit hemmed in on that front. We are at risk of being out of compliance if we don't zone for those growth targets. But we can do things in terms of context and where it makes sense that high density housing can work for us.
Thank you. So next question, we'll start with Matthew Kenna. What is your plan to address homelessness within the community of Sumner? In particular, talk about temporary housing and long-term solutions. Matthew Kenna.
Sure. This is potentially the most complex issue that our region is facing and potentially our country. The greater Seattle area is one of the highest populations of homeless and unsheltered in the country. So it's definitely a challenge, and there's really no specific solution. I did mention the South Sound Housing Affordability Partners because I do think that homelessness, a major piece of that is affordability. And if we address the affordability issue, first and foremost, that can take us a good long way to taking people off the streets and giving them dignity and giving them a home. I think the work that they are doing is great, and I did highlight that earlier. I have been talking with staff while on the council about a regional homeless authority. We really have to make sure that benefits the citizens of Sumner. We are lucky enough that we don't have a large homeless problem, but I did talk to school district staff.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, yes. So yeah, so thank you for that question as well. Um, we do have to remember that there are folks in town who are unhoused. This is an issue that we do have to address and face, and that's really important to realize this and look at solutions that we can work on. One thing that I am well aware of is that there are services in town that are provided by private organizations like local churches and the school district in particular. Um, but they don't help all. And I have personal experience in this area. I had a young woman who came up to me on the street and was looking to get help, get housing, and get away from a dangerous situation. But she was too old for the school district to help her, and there were no services that were open at 11:30 at night that could accommodate her. So we ended up having to go to Tacoma to get her services. So what I would like to see in Sumner is, first of all, a list of services so that when I called the county, they said there's nothing in Sumner that you can go to. You have to go to Tacoma. I'd like to see a list that the authorities can use and refer people to. And I'd also like to see the coordination of these types of services at a much better level than what's currently being done. It seems like it's more ad hoc and is more done by private sources when there's really no oversight to that. So some sort of an authority by the city council would be a great approach to handle it.
Thank you. So next question is an audience question. We'll start with Nick Biermann. And what are your thoughts on current residents' experience of light pollution due to development?
Oh, this is an interesting question. Um, Light pollution, I would actually like to see a light pollution map and look at where the areas where there is more light pollution and where there isn't. Um, I think the side of town where I live, it's a little bit more residential, a little bit lower density or medium density, and light pollution isn't so great here. But there are areas where we're putting in higher density housing. We're going to be putting in parking lots, and we need to make sure that the lights that are put in are shielded appropriately so that light isn't projecting upward. The light is more low, the light being uh, emitted by these lights and the lamps are more focused in the area where they're supposed to be. So that's a great question, a great approach to trying to address something that will become more and more of a problem as we have more and more development in town.
Thank you. Matthew Kenna, what are your thoughts on current residents' experience of light pollution due to development?
Sure. I'll take the portion of that question in terms of current resident experiences. Being on the council for the last year or so, I have not had any resident complaints specifically about light pollution. But I can understand that when we do have new developments going in, it's changing the character, it's changing the dynamic of the neighborhoods that it's going into. I kind of go back to the context means everything, where we put development, whether that is high density, medium density, something like that. Where we put that really, really matters because again, if you're putting that right next to, single family homes, and now you've got a lot of people coming and going and parking, and you've got, new lighting fixtures going in to light the parking lots and things like that, then I can understand how that would be a very negative experience for somebody. So I would encourage that individual to get in touch with me if they're interested in sharing a little bit more about that. I think that our communities are unfortunately being forced to change by the growth. We live in a great place. People want to come here. My opponent just mentioned, he's not originally from Sumner. I'm not originally from Sumner, but we both have found a home here. And so I think it's really important to be welcome neighbors, but understand we need to be able to shape where the development goes and how it affects our communities and our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Let's see. The next question is also an audience question. And this goes to Matthew Kenna. Are you willing to close down Main Street to reroute traffic? Matthew Kenna.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I wish there's a little more context. I'm using that context word a lot today, because I'm not sure if this is just for events or for something else. I can tell you just in terms of Main Street, the first thing I think of is our businesses. And if we're making any changes to what it looks like now, we need to address that with the business community first and foremost. I think we really need to bring, when we do that, when we have those conversations with the business community, especially on Main Street there, we need to come with evidence and with data that shows, if we're making changes, here's why we're doing that. Here's what we think will happen. Here's what's happened in other communities when they've made changes. If this is particularly as a result of like our parades, our festivals, things like that, I do know Main Street is closed off. We do a number of events where we do close down Main Street that are fantastic when it's pedestrian friendly. I love it. We're going to have Hops Alley is another major project the city is kind of in the middle of right now that is adjacent to Main Street. That's going to be a very pedestrian friendly um, space and will accommodate all the businesses nearby as well. Safety is a major concern. I've sat on Main Street with my family and had gelato from one of the shops on the street, and we've seen cars zooming by, a lot of noise traffic. It's very uncomfortable to be just sitting on the sidewalk. So I would look at the dynamics and the dimensions of Main Street and see if we can do anything, but I would want to make sure I address those with the business community on Main Street.
Thank you. Nick Biermann, are you willing to close down Main Street to reroute traffic?
Yeah, I would also like to know the context of this question more specifically. But I will say that we've had success with events and parades where the street is closed for a few hours on a weekend, for example, or like rhubarb days for the entire weekend. And businesses still are open because there's a lot of foot traffic, there's a lot of pedestrians, there's a lot of people downtown. So the event brings people in. It's not necessarily keeping businesses from having visitors. So I think there's sometimes when it can benefit. But what I will say about Hops Alley is that my understanding is part of the motivation for creating Hops Alley is to take some of the pedestrian traffic off of Main Street for different types of events and leave Main Street open during some events. That would be a decision that I think we should work with the businesses and talk to them about. Is that really the best approach? Would we want an event going on with pedestrians on Hops Alley, but still have cars going down Main Street? I don't know that that's the best approach to having uh, both going on at the same time, but I think we should work with the community. I think we should work with the businesses. We should sit down and talk to them and find out if they want the street traffic, the cars still going past while there's an event in progress. That's not normally how we've done things, but we may be changing that in the future.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Nick Biermann. Please speak about your position on the White River restoration efforts. Are they a priority? Why or why not? Nick Biermann.
Well, I, I'm not involved in the decisions that were already made. So what I can say is that it has been a priority for the city, and part of the reason was because there was flooding going on with some of the trails in adjacent to the river on the west side, and that even some of the industrial area had experienced some flooding as well. Uh, so part of the reason for it being a priority was to address problems that were already ongoing. So would it be a priority of mine? I don't know that I can really speak to that because a lot of those decisions have already been made, and the project is one of the large capital projects that's already in progress. So there's really not a lot that could be changed as far as what's going on, what's already in progress. So I wouldn't have a lot of decision making ability there to alter what's already ongoing. But I do think there's a lot of benefits to the project that's in place. Moving the trail to higher ground will have a benefit, reduce the risk of it flooding during times of high water. And then they're also adding different channels to help push water away from the main channel during times of flooding. So there is a benefit to it. And there's also ecological considerations that are being taken into account, working with the tribal organizations, and also working with the state to make sure that the uh, rules are being followed for the salmon and the river course affecting the wildlife in the area.
Thank you. Matthew Kenna, what's your position on the White River restoration efforts? Are they a priority? Why or why not?
Yes, it's definitely a priority for the city, for the council, and I believe for our citizens. Unfortunately, years ago, the White River was diverted and the landscape was really drastically changed. And I don't think there was a lot of understanding about the implications of that. And so now we're having to kind of repair what was done. And I think it's important to do that. As I mentioned before, we've had staff working on this for over a decade. I think I heard some statistics the other day from one of our partners at the Puget Sound Regional Council that city staff had almost 60 meetings with their partners to talk through all the mechanics of this and just get on the same page and just feel like there's some trust. And we have tribal partners, we have county partners, we have state partners as well, and lots of other folks that really care about this project. So the elevation of it means that we definitely should care. It improves our adaptability to floods in the area, which we are prone to. It reduces our risk to those floods. It enhances habitat for our natural environment for our fish. And that's something that, again, we're having to go back and change work that was done decades ago, but it's important to do. It improves the water quality in our streams and rivers, and it makes us more resilient to the ever-changing climate that we have. On top of that, we have economic benefits from the trail connection, recreational benefits, definitely a major priority for the city and for council.
Okay. Last question is an audience question. And we'll start with Matthew Kenna. So what is the definition of high density development, and do we have to do it or have to plan for it? Matthew Kenna.
Sure. I believe, don't quote me on the definition, but I think when we talk high density, we're talking over 4 stories. So we're talking 5 or 6 stories or more. And, you're really looking at, hundreds of dwelling units as they are called in planning speak. And you're really changing that piece of land with a lot of new units. So I actually do this work for the state, where I work with local jurisdictions on their growth targets and their comprehensive plans. And it is something that we do have to plan for and we have to accommodate. Some people will tell you that we just have to zone for it, and then we don't have to permit the housing or the development. Well, that puts us at risk legally, number one, and it also makes it mean we could be out of compliance with our regional planning authority, the Puget Sound Regional Council. That means we're ineligible for transportation funding on a number of projects that we've talked about tonight. We would be out of compliance with the state. And so this can go to the Growth Management Hearings Board. Basically, all the jurisdictions in our region have to take their piece of the pie for all the population growth that is coming, and we have to do our part. We get to choose where that is, we get to plan for that and what works for us, but we do have to do our part. Otherwise, we are really running the risk of being out of compliance and having kind of legal ramifications to that.
Thank you. Nick Biermann, please.
Yeah, thank you for this question too. Yes, so I will echo some of the sentiments from my opponent there about the structures that are in place to accommodate the growth and make sure that the growth is distributed among communities in the area. So the Growth Management Act at the state level and then down to different regional and county planning commissions, there is a requirement in place to accommodate future growth. And Sumner is a transit oriented community because of the Sumner station. So that means that we do have to accommodate a certain number, accommodate the potential for a certain number of housing units. I believe it's 1,985 housing units that have to be planned for in the city plan through 2024. And then we are required to take in about 10% of the future growth in the area, according to my understanding. Transit-oriented development, like the definition of what high density is, I believe it's 3.5 what's that, 3.5 floor area ratio within a quarter-mile radius of the station, the South Transit, sorry, the Sound Transit station. I also know that we have 623 units that are permitted, and we're guessing that that will accommodate about 1,200 people. So that's already what's in plan, but we have to, we not only do we have to plan for it, but we also have to be smart about how that plan is implemented. And I think that's where we have the control.
Thank you. So we have now come to closing statements. Each candidate has 1 minute for their closing statement. We'll change the order of the opening statements. So we'll start with Nick Biermann and then finish with Matthew Kenna. Nick Biermann, your closing statement, please.
Right. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I really do appreciate the chance to talk directly to voters out there and answer questions. I want the voters to see the deep passion that I have for this community and how inspired I am to make changes for the community that benefit us all. I've talked with residents in the community who see the loss of significant parts of our history, from the ongoing transformation of Heritage Park to the destruction of the Ryan House, to construction of new large apartment buildings, to even the removal of shade trees in downtown. And one theme I hear in common is that they're concerned about the direction our community is headed in. I share their concerns and I hear their voice. We can address these concerns and have smart plans to accommodate future growth, but we can also preserve the small town charm at the same time. I'm your neighbor. I want to work with you on these solutions. I want to represent you and your voice, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you. Matthew Kenna, your 1 minute closing statement.
Sure. Again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County for this opportunity. I want to thank my opponent, Nick, for joining as well so we could have this discussion and inform voters. And thanks to the citizens of Sumner for joining us tonight or watching the recording later on. I really believe Sumner is a great place. And I can't tell you how lucky I feel like I am that my family found this place. I think we're doing a lot of great things here, and I'm really proud of our city. For a town of just over 10,000, we are small but mighty. We do some things and some big things that other towns of a similar size couldn't even dream of. And we have a great foundation here. I want to keep working with staff. I want to keep working with council. I want to keep working with the community to increase our opportunities, to shape our growth, to energize our downtown. Everything I've done in my professional academic life has pointed me in this direction. So hopefully I can earn your vote to continue doing so. Thank you.
Thank you. In ballot order, the candidates for Sumner City Council Position 2 are Matthew Kenna and Nick Biermann. Your ballot will be mailed out October 17th. Be sure to vote early and no later than November 4th. I would like to thank the candidates who participated, the timekeeper, Terry Baker, and Tacoma-Pierce County League of Women Voters. You can see other League of Women Voter candidate forums at lwvtpc.org, and you can tell your friends to watch this one at lwvtpc.org. Read your voters pamphlet and read the candidates' websites, and don't forget to vote before November 4th. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.